Hi, my name is Kevin Thomas, W1DED, and this is Q5 Ham Radio. This morning, and this is morning in Maine right now, I'm talking to three hams in Norway. I'm talking to KN2P, Violetta, Leon DL3ON, and Megan EI5LA.
This episode is brought to you by DX Engineering, supporting amateur radio operators worldwide with the gear and expertise to get you on the air.
They have all convened with other team members for the VP0SG preparation meeting. Welcome.
Thank you for having us.
So let's start from the beginning. What brought you all to Norway?
So we are all convened here in Norway to test, and all the equipment we'll be using on South Georgia. So as you can see behind us, we have the tent set up that we'll be using, all the radios set up, configured, all the monitors, basically all the antennas, making sure that everything works before we pack it into the container. That's the goal of this weekend.
So I don't want to assume that all of our listeners know about the South Georgia DXpedition. Can you give us a little bit of background about that, like who's going and when that's going to take place?
Yeah, so we will be departing in March of 27, and this will be an expedition to South Georgia near Antarctica, and we will fly to the Falkland Islands and then take a vessel, the Meridian, on a 5-day cruise to the island. And the crew right now consists of 17 operators from all of Europe, 16 operators from all of Europe and the US. And we also have 3 youth assembled here.
Well, and I really appreciate the youth aspect of the DXpedition, and I would like each of you individually to tell me how you got involved. And Megan, let's start with you. How did you get involved with this DXpedition?
Well, it all kind of started last October when the 3 of us, along with several other youngsters, went to Curacao to PJ2T to do the worldwide SSB contest. And from there on, we obviously all became really good friends. And then a couple months ago, I got a text from Violetta asking if I'd be interested to go to South Georgia. And then the team lead reached out to me, and it all kind of started from there. And no regrets. It's been amazing so far. The team is great, so it should be fun.
And Violetta, why don't you next, since you took an early role?
Yeah, the story kind of started a little before that. I operated down at J62K along with Leon back for the WPX sideband in 2025. Steve, Whiskey Zero Zulu Bravo, who's also our team doctor, has also operated from that station with the crew down there as well. So he was on the team. The team was looking to add an additional young person. And since as you know, the J62K team does very well with youth outreach, they have a lot of connections with the young people. That's where they started to see if they, had any connections with solid operators. And so that's how I first got on the team.
And Leon, you next.
Well, my story is quite similar to Megan's. I was talking to Violetta, and at some point she asked me, well, would you be interested? And then the team lead reached out, and things got assembled that way, and now I'm here.
Well, speaking of here, I think it's absolutely pretty cool that people from around the world, including the 3 of you, have all convened in Norway. Could you go down through the team list for me and roughly where they're all traveling from? And I don't expect you to remember every single home destination, but give us some perspective on where people are traveling from for this weekend.
Yeah, we have Fred F4HEC, obviously from France, Paul Golf 4, Papa Victor Mike. We have Erwan Lima Bravo 1 Quebec, India, obviously from Norway. UT5UI Alex, and UR8UQ, also Alex, from Ukraine. LA7THA, the team lead, also from Norway. LB5GI Yermond, also from Norway. OE7PGI Philip from Austria. And OK2WX and OK2YL, Vlad and Paula. IU2EFB Gianpaolo from Italy, and LA3BO Svein, and Steve Whiskey Zero Zulu Bravo, who is our team doctor, and
Yeah, what's it called?
What's it called?
Golf Zero Victor Juliet Golf.
Golf Zero Victor Juliet Golf Nobby.
Great job with that. I appreciate that you were scanning the crowd, making sure you didn't leave anybody out. You know, one of the things I'm always amazed with, and I think this comes from my business background, is hard to get a team to gel. So I know you're there practicing putting up antennas and tents and making sure technically the DXpedition goes well. But I'm really curious about how the team is gelling, how it has gone for you guys to meet some of these people for the first time and figure out each other's personalities and how you're going to work together. Any one of you can take that on.
So it's been really cool because a lot of these operators we've worked before on the expeditions or in contesting. So it's been amazing to put some faces to the names and call signs. So the way they did it was they split the team up into sub-teams for radios, antennas, and all the auxiliary. So we have smaller groups within the team with whom we work closely together to make sure our specific subtopic goes well. But no, overall it's been really good. I mean, everyone here has been amazing, and the evenings are for networking and team building, and there's been talks and preparation. So no, everyone's been amazing. It's been really great to meet everyone.
Leon and Violetta, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I'd say it's been very good. We usually start the mornings with some kind of talk for the whole team, whether that's on prep for the day. We also had some talks on biosecurity, how to prepare for the island, and then obviously throughout the day, the individual teams have their certain tasks, and that's kind of what it looks like. Take a short break for lunch, back at it in the afternoon.
Yeah, I was really happy to see how well the team works together. And because we will spend quite a lot of time in quite confined space, you actually have to be able to spend time with these people. And this is also a thing we'll be doing here, is like networking and like just getting to know the people. And this has been wonderful. Like everyone is so nice, working together, helping each other out. And I'm really looking forward to spend more time with these people. Looking
at you guys, I see these two giant towers in the back of you. And I presume those weren't set up for DXpedition practice. So give us some perspective as to where you are in Norway and what I'm looking at there.
Yeah, we're at the LN8W station right now. It's has enough places for all of the team. It's a good place to host this. So we have all 17 people of us here. There's always good places to sleep, lots of food. It's about, about 2 hours drive from Oslo, which is where everybody flew in.
So let's get into the technical setup, and let's start with the tent, since that's looming behind you. What's the plan as far as operating conditions on the island?
We will actually be having two sites. One primary site with 2 tents, one station tent and one storage tent. And we will be also having a second site about 1 kilometer in distance from the primary site, which will be having another set of low-power radios, which will be worked over remote connection on the island.
And I think I saw some photos on social media of somebody setting up a spider beam, but tell us about antennas. What are you planning on setting up?
So we will be having a hex beam antenna with a triplexer, and as well as multiple verticals for the low bands. And we will have also plenty of backup antennas for the walk bands and stuff. And basically, we're all testing it right now, and everything being working fine so far.
And tell me about that process. Obviously, as I said, I saw people getting together, putting an antenna together, and I'll go back to this idea that it takes a little while for people to get familiar with each other. How has that gone? Are you tripping over each other, or are you trying to figure out a way that you can all contribute efficiently to a setup?
As mentioned, we took the team and then we split it into subgroups for South Georgia. So to prepare for that, we've decided to work in the subgroups for this weekend also. So it's typically 3 people a group. So 3 of us were setting up radios in the tent. 3 people were working on the hex beam, a couple of people were working on the 160 vertical. So it's actually really well organized. There's like 20 people in the tent at the same time trying to put up 3 or 4 radios. But no, it's been working really well. So we all put up the tent first, which was a good team building exercise, and then we kind of split off and everyone worked on their own subtopic.
So I'm really curious what you have all learned so far from this process. And it'd be unfair to any one of the 3 of you to suggest this is your first time. I mean, even though you're all young, you're all very experienced operators, but are there any lessons that are kind of coming to the fore for you that you're learning from some of these veteran ham radio operators?
Actually, we had like a knotting course yesterday. We spent quite a lot of time just practicing knots, because when you're on the island, this has to be perfect. Like there's no fiddling around with knots and uncertainty how to tie something down. This needs to be like in muscle memory, and we spent quite a lot of time just practicing how to do all the guying of the antennas in such a way that this won't be an issue. And I think we also had some fun while doing that.
Yeah, definitely.
And Violetta, anything from your perspective?
It's just been like a lot of learning from everybody. Obviously, everyone else on the team, they've had multiple DXpeditions under their belt. So it's very interesting coming in from, a perspective of just so much to learn from quite literally everybody else in the team. I think every step along the way, we're always picking up, even small things, and it's been great.
And Megan?
Yeah, it's just in general. I mean, obviously there's a lot associated with the expedition planning, but I think you don't really see as much of it if you're just sitting there working the actual DXpedition team while they're there. So it's really nice to see all the background and the planning that goes into it, and all the tiny details that you have to pay attention to make sure it all works out that you don't really consider if you're not involved with the planning.
One of the things that struck me when I was speaking with the team leaders a while ago is the commitment of time that you're all making to do this DXpedition. Tell the audience a little bit about that from start to finish, what sort of timetable you're looking at.
So it's going to be about 5 weeks from start to finish. So the whole team is assembling in London, and we take an RAF flight from London to the Falklands. And we arrive in the Falklands 2 days before departure. And departure is currently set for March 6th of 2027. So then from March 6th when we depart, it's about 5 or 6 days on the ship just to get to South Georgia. And we have the boat for 28 days. So from March 6th, that gives us, about 2 weeks on the island and then the 5 or 6 day journey back to the Falklands.
Tell me about that RAF flight. I didn't realize that.
So basically the issue will be that there's like a limited connectivity from anywhere in the world basically to the Falklands. So we will be traveling via basic route being flown by the RAF. The issue with that is that we cannot take much equipment on that flight. Basically only limited personal equipment like a small backpack. So basically the whole effort we're doing right now is being able to assemble everything in a shipping container that will be shipped way in advance. So there's a lot of planning also involved in like making sure that everything we will need will be in this container, because we will have really high restrictions on what we can take on that RAF flight.
One of the things that constantly comes up with DXpeditions is obviously you're dealing with unexpected conditions, usually climate-related conditions. Has there been any discussion or planning for what-if scenarios?
Well, I mean, obviously we have to prepare for the absolute worst case scenario, to the sunshine that could possibly be there. So there's been a lot of discussions about what clothes to take, both for while operating and of course for like outdoors, setting up antennas. There's been a lot of consideration gone into what antennas to bring.
Yeah, penguins.
Yeah, the penguins.
No, I think penguins will be like much of an issue. But like we spent actually quite a lot of time also sitting in the group in the living room and like discussing what if scenarios, because rather be prepared and have an idea what to do than being stuck in the situation and not knowing what to do, because this is where it can get dangerous if you don't like thought of that beforehand. So we're actually writing a lot of that down and making internal documentation and writing small protocols on what to do, and basically everything is designed around the principle that the crew is being safe. And we have emergency shelters, lots of food on the island. We will be planning on having enough fuel, so the generators can also run in the time when we cannot leave the island. And everything is basically around crew safety, designed around crew safety in that perspective.
Well, let's talk about safety. Clearly, you guys aren't 12, 11 years old. You're young adults. But I, as a dad, I can tell you that I'd be a little bit concerned about my young adult children heading off for 5 weeks on this big adventure. What sort of feedback are you getting from your parents?
Very thankfully, actually, my dad met our team doctor, Steve, Whiskey Zero Zulu Bravo, in Dayton just a few
Smart
weeks ago.
move. That builds confidence.
He reassured my father, meeting him in person is always, a nice touch, that he's the doctor responsible for everybody's safety and that he'll do everything to get me back home safely. So I don't think my parents right now are too worried about it.
My parents kind of realized what a big undertaking it was, and they obviously understand the risks, but at the same time they were both incredibly supportive. When I first introduced the topic, I was asked where was South Georgia on a map, so I put it in and pulled up Google Maps, and the first 10 images are all of penguins. And they all saw penguins and looked at me and went, okay, you need to go, you have to go. So they've been incredibly supportive.
I actually think that's a really important point. When I was looking at images and I saw that, it just seemed so wonderful. Not as barren as Beauvais. And Leon, your perspective?
Obviously, this, for me, from my perspective, this is a once-in-a-lifetime thing. So my parents also realized that and were supporting me in every way they could. especially, for example, I got to borrow the family car because I was building tripods to mount the gigahertz link antennas used on the island back in Germany, and I drove all the way here to Oslo with a family car, and I was able to borrow it for almost a week. So that's quite a lot of support.
So let's talk about operating schedule. Again, I know there's a lot of teammates. I believe everybody is staying on the boat. I think you're traveling back and forth from the island, but what does the operating schedule look like, or is that still being refined?
That's still we're in the process of working through that. We don't know exactly what that's going to look like right now.
I mean, once again, adding to the previous discussion, this also needs to be designed in such a way that it can be flexibly and adjusted to the conditions we have on the island. So we will probably start at first with having more people on the island assembling everything and back and forth. And only in the middle of the expedition, I assume there will be a constant schedule being established, which also has to be managed with the weather and everything. But still, there's lots of thinking to be done.
So this is midday in Norway. I presume you're there for the rest of today, maybe even through Sunday. What does the next day and a half look like for you guys?
Well, we spent all of yesterday and most of this morning assembling basically the entire station and all the antennas and the tent and getting everything set up as close to the situation we'll be in South Georgia, just to see that everything works and get used to everything. But as most of us are leaving early tomorrow or tomorrow lunchtime, we'll finish testing everything and make sure we're happy, and then start packing it all up again in a way that we can load it into the container and that it's easily accessible once we get to South Georgia.
Are you still raising money?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, a trip like this, we, a lot of this is funded by the operators, but we also rely on the support of, outside ham radio operators. We're always accepting donations, and you can go to the website to donate there.
I wanted to say that I'm incredibly thankful for big groups and the expedition groups that they take youth with them, because this is, for me, from my perspective, one of the most important parts of this hobby right now. Because, you want to have people to make QSOs with in 30 years from now on, and so you actually need to raise the next generation of new DXpeditioners. And there are not that many teams actually taking youth on such big DXpeditions. So I'm incredibly thankful for the team to have us youth on there.
Yeah, not just one youth, but all three of us.
No, I'm glad you underscored that, Leon, because it is impressive. I've been impressed for a long time with people like J62K and their program to get young people on the air. But then DXpeditions is an entirely different level. So thanks for mentioning that. I don't want to keep you guys from all the hard work that you need to be doing. And I'm sure there's a gang of people behind the camera saying, hey, get off the camera, get back to work. So I'm going to say 73. I really appreciate you taking the time from Norway to join Q5 this morning.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
My name is Kevin Thomas, W1DED. This has been Q5 Ham Radio. I've been talking to the youth from the VP0SG DXpedition preparation meeting that's taking place in Norway as we speak. 73.